All right, everybody. It's Logan here, dropping in on your Friday afternoon or possibly evening, depending on what part of the country you are in. I thought I'd give a little House election update, an election update on how things are going in the House of Representatives. Also going to talk a bit about what I think these recent House races mean for the future of the Democratic Party. But first, let me talk about the little poll that I just dropped in the channel about an hour ago. Let's refresh it here. All right, so I asked, what state do you think will be called first? 44% of those of you who voted to Pennsylvania, and then Georgia, 21%, then Arizona, 20%, then Nevada. North Carolina looks about right to me. Certainly, I think Nevada and then North Carolina will be after these other ones. Speaking of how long it takes to count these votes, have you guys seen some of these memes? I think they're pretty funny. Like, this is the guy counting ballots in Nevada. This is a sloth from Zootopia. You got this one here. U.S., hey, please count faster. Nevada and Pennsylvania. Well, now I'm not doing it. All right, but now let's talk about these House races. Obviously, the presidential election gets the most buzz, followed by the Senate race, right? Because, the Senate could still theoretically flip from red to blue. I don't think that will happen, but that is a possibility. So naturally, the Senate race is somewhat prominent behind the presidential race. But then we have the House race, which this year did not generate as much buzz because no one realistically saw a chance of Republicans actually flipping the House. And it looks like they won't, will they? Democrats, nevertheless, are still not happy with the results of the House elections. Why? We're going to get into it. For starters, let's back up here. Every member of the House of Representatives is up for re-election in every election cycle. House members are elected to a 2-year term. So everybody in the House was up for re-election. There are currently 232 Democrats in Congress, 197 Republicans, 1 Libertarian, but that Libertarian is not running for re-election, by the way, and 5 seats are vacant. Okay, so there are 435 seats in the House of Representatives total. So how many seats do you need to win a majority of the House? You need 435 divided by 2 and round up. So 218 seats are required to control the House for a particular party. So as you can see in the current election map, Democrats are at 213 right now. 213 House races have been won by Democrats. So they only need 5 more races to be called in their favor to control the House again going into 2021. And they will get them. They will. For one thing, here in California's 34th district, which is downtown Los Angeles and surrounding areas, you have a Democrat versus a Democrat. Naturally, a Democrat will win. Then over on the other side of the country, you have New York's 18th and 19th districts, which Democrats will win as well. You've got Washington's 8th district up there. The Democratic candidate is up, as you can see, what is that, 4.8%. You've got Nevada's 3rd district here, where the incumbent Democrat, Susie Lee, will very likely win, right? So Democrats aren't going to lose the House. They're going to get at least 5 seats to get them to 218, and likely more, right? But nevertheless, Democrats are still crying, literally. Why? Because many of their wins were far more narrow than expected, and because they will lose seats. I pointed out 5 or so easy races for the Democrats that will get them to the majority they need. But the majority of these outstanding races across the country right now will be taken by Republicans. Check out what the New York Times has down here if you happen to visit their website. They have these 5 columns here. They have races that the Times expects Democrats to win easily. And keep in mind that the Times leans left. They have races that the Times expected Democrats to win narrowly. They have the toss-up states, in the Times' opinion. They have the races that the Times expected Republicans to win narrowly, and the races that the Times expected Republicans to win easily. So let's look at these columns here. So if you look at the column, the races that Democrats were expected to win easily. Okay, they pretty much won them all, right? There is one here that's kind of an outlier, couple others haven't been called, but okay, that looks all right. But then look at this column here. These were races where Democrats were expected to win narrowly. Look how much red is in this column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 races where Republican is up or has won. The one where it's a darker color means that the Republican has won. But now, look at these columns over here. Look at these toss-up states. Look at this column. Do you see any blue here? You see a little blue there. But other than that, do you see any blue here? No. In these toss-up states, Republicans, in these toss-up races, Republicans are dominating. Do you see any blue in these columns here where Republicans were expected to win anyway? No, you don't. There's a runoff here, but this runoff is between 2 Republicans. So, while Republicans made some headway here in this column, and then look at this toss-up column, there has been pretty much no Democratic infiltration in these 2 columns here. So that's why Democrats are crying, literally crying, and why it's causing Democrats in the House to call for a more centrist Democratic Party and to distance themselves from more progressive wings of the party. Here's a Twitter thread from a Washington Post congressional reporter who was on Pelosi's caucus call yesterday, and the call is an absolute crap show. Abigail Spanberger, Democratic Congresswoman from Virginia's 7th District. And you can see on the map here, let's go up to the map, right? It hasn't been called yet, but I think Spanberger's going to win, but it's pretty close. Look what Spanberger said on the call. She was yelling. She said, "We lost races we shouldn't have lost. Call to defend the police almost cost me my race because of an attack ad. Don't say socialism ever again. The Democratic Party needs to get back to basics." She went on to say, "If we run this race again, we will get bleeping torn apart again in 2022. Pelosi, of course, trying to be the mother hen and calm her chicks down, disagreed. She said, "Look at the bright side. We got the White House, and we kept the House of Representatives." And remember, many of these more centrist Democrats, they're not happy with Pelosi. Pelosi didn't take the deal. She didn't get stimulus done. They don't like what they saw in these House races. And some of them were talking about Hakeem Jeffries, right, the House Democratic Caucus chair. They're saying that this guy, could bridge moderates and progressive better than Pelosi. Jeffries shot down the idea, okay? But there is clearly grumbling in the ranks here. Now, earlier I said that Democrats were literally crying. What did I mean? Well, earlier in the call, Representative Debbie Mukersel-Powell was literally in tears. She was crying because she lost her race. Far left progressive Rashida Tlaib was making a call for the place that progressivism has in the Democratic Party, saying that before we make painful statements, and I see these painful statements in Tlaib's mind as calls like Spanberger's for Democrats to distance themselves from the more progressive wing of the party. Tlaib said she feels like she's being asked to be quiet about her progressive ideals in order to appeal to certain people, and she feels that's not right. Rashida Tlaib said, you can't blame the progressive ideals for what happened in the House races. If it wasn't Black Lives Matter or socialism, it would have been something else that would have caused Democrats to lose the seats they lost. So what do I see here? Well, yes, Democrats will keep control of the House. But we're really starting to see a rift here within the Democratic caucus itself in the House. We have the progressives who want to maintain their progressive messaging and are calling for radical change and adopting catchphrases like defund the police and using words like socialism. But then on the other hand, we have these more centrist Democrats like Abigail Spanberger from Virginia saying, screw that. Associating ideas like that with the Democratic Party almost cost me my race. Democrats need to figure out their messaging, and they need to take serious stock of what they want their party to look like these next 2 years going into 2022 if they want to keep the House, and by extension the presidency in 2024, because the United States, despite what you might see on the media, is still quite a centrist country. Kevin McCarthy said it yesterday. America does not want to be a socialist nation. That message resonates with pretty much all Republicans. But the opposite statement, which would be America wants to be a socialist nation, that resonates with some Democrats but does not resonate with others. The Democratic Party needs to figure this out because a lot of blue-collar workers who have thrown their hat in with Joe Biden this time around are viewing this as a test for Democrats who will now have more power than they've had since the earlier Obama years. And if they feel that the Democratic Party is not working for them, for blue-collar workers in Abigail Spanberger's 7th Virginia District, for example, and they feel that the party is becoming an elitist, overly progressive institution, the Democratic Party will be in for a rude awakening in 2 years and potentially in 4 years, because that's exactly what happened in 2016. That's my take on the House elections, folks. Unless something massively disruptive happens with the House election, this will probably be my only House election update. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.